Hi, hello everyone. Hi. Can you guys just give me a thumbs up that you can hear me? Hello. Hi. Hi. Can I get a thumbs up that you guys can hear me? Okay, I'm assuming that you guys can. I'm going to add Malvika from. And once she joins, we can start. Thank you for joining, guys. We're here to talk about lime plaster. We're doing a bunch of Instagram lives where we're talking about building materials and generally focusing on materials that we tend to use. Hi, Malvika.
Hi, Anjali.
Hi,
Am I
welcome.
audible?
Thank you for. Yes, yes, very much. Am I audible?
Yes, clearly.
All right, lovely. Thank you so much for doing this. So I was actually just
Of course.
kind of giving a background on what we're doing here. So basically, we actually did a bunch of Instagram posts on the building materials that we use, and we got very good feedback. And in fact, it was very engaging, I think, for our Instagram followers, and we got a lot of questions. So we decided to do these Instagram lives where we kind of do a deep dive into some of these materials, and we answer questions that people have asked. And a lot of these questions are really great because we move beyond the aesthetic and we really talk about
Yeah,
pros and cons of using those materials, and also implementation techniques and challenges in implementation, and real world sort of
I
issues.
can imagine, especially for young practicing architects, it's a real gap. You
I
get
agree.
theoretical knowledge, you get like information from vendors, but the actual site experience of it is hard to access. That
I
to have
totally
those
agree. And I
conversations.
also feel
Yeah,
that this piece is really missing in the architectural education.
yeah,
And I think that it also creates a sense of fear for the young architects and designers, right? Where they have this fear of going to the site and actually implementing some of their ideas. So we're just hoping that some of this is useful. And we did one session on IPS about 2 weeks back.
yeah.
We obviously got really great sort of engagement and audience, but a lot of people came back to us asking us about lime plaster. And because I know you and we have chatted in the past, quickly we reached out to you, and I'm so glad that you've agreed to do this live
Of
session with
course,
us.
of
So
course.
I'll give a brief introduction about you and what you do, and then I will actually let you
So,
introduce yourselves. So guys, we have Malvika here with us, and Malvika is a founder of an amazing sort of an enterprise which is called M Lime. And what she's doing is that she's trying to make lime more accessible as a building material to all of us. I am a big supporter of women-run enterprises, running one myself. So I'm a big proponent of Malvika and what she's doing, and she's really great. She's really into lime. she she can talk endlessly about it. So I think we have the right person here today with us. So Malvika, I think you take it away now with introducing what you do and how you got started and all of that.
well, I'm a trained architect, and how I only did an undergraduation studies. I didn't study a master's, and I like to say that because my encounter with lime was very organic, and I grew to learn and love the material very organically. I didn't. I Though I did encounter the material when I started restoring my family's old ancestral house, which meant that very soon after observing the building, I realized that there's no way out. I have to use lime. It's a building built in lime, and the only way to restore it logically would be to use lime. Cement and lime would not cement repair would not give me the longevity and the durability and the performance that I would need. And so that's how I encountered lime. I also started living in this building through the course of its restoration, and that's where I slowly, gradually, over seasons, across the day, across architectural, spatial configurations, I started learning the material, its behavior, and what it can do for the well-being of its inhabitants, and its life cycle, sort of across its life, how it performs, and so on. And I could contrast it with cement, which was the kind of buildings, cement-based constructions, which I had encountered up until that point in my life. I had grown up in Delhi
Right.
and lived in conventional. So anyway, so that's how I realized that we need to sort out lime, because also lime could matter today, not just for restoration work, but also for new builds. And it could potentially be a very positive, promising answer for new build contemporary construction, because number one, it matters because of its inherent sustainability. And that's not just something we say now, it's something that's an urgent matter today. It's an urgent problem pressing on every research lab in every architectural school across the world. People are innovating materials. They're looking for ways to take waste and turn it into construction material, because I think 15% of greenhouse emissions come from the construction industry. We know what
Yes.
cement can do for us, and now we've come full circle with cement. We know what it can't do for us as well. And one of the things about cement is that end of life options are very limited, very toxic. This cement lives in your building for 50-60 years and then lives for a 1,000 years in the landfill, unlike lime, which gives us a closed loop of energy flow. So it becomes it reabsorbs all the carbon dioxide. Sorry, I'm going so detailed into this, but I'm going to come back to how M-Lime happened. Anyway, so so I had a lot of experiences which told me that lime, which kind of gave me a feeling that lime could be more than just a restoration material, could be more than just a niche material, and all the practical problems around it, whether it's finding karigars, finding the know-how, finding the wisdom, the traditional wisdom, the ecosystem that holds up, that makes it possible to use a material. I thought that they were all bit by bit fixable. They would take work, but they were fixable. And so I started producing lime to use on my own site, because I wasn't happy with the kind of supply that one gets, the supply chains of the material as it exists for the construction market today. And that's also what I realized. 3-4 generations of poor quality of raw material meant that the artisanship and the knowledge and the know-how had died, and lime became associated with defective practice. And so
Right.
for me, it was going to the problem was solved, making sure that first the material that we have available is good, it's high quality, it's dependable, etc. And that's what led me to crystallize M-Lime as an independent enterprise when the lockdowns happened. And we were using this product on our own site, and then the lockdowns happened. As an architect, I couldn't do much work, so I thought here's a chance to sort of spin it out.
Wow,
That's a
it's so
long
cool
version.
that it's like a difficult situation led to innovation, right? So and now we have M-Lime that a lot of us can use. I mean, I think that the general sort of people knowing about M-Lime, like the knowledge has just spread very fast. Like, and I think that there was definitely a big gap in the market in terms of, availability of product when it comes to lime, which I think
Yeah.
M-Lime has sort of really been able to fill. So I guess, Malvika, the very first question, right, is that a lot of people are interested in lime because of its aesthetic properties, right? So a lot
Right.
of us are interested in kind of the lime plaster look, which is very similar to the IPS look. So, I think that's the first thing that we would like to kind of talk about. I know that it's only a one thing that lime can do. Lime can do a lot more other things, but
Yeah.
can we address that? Like, what's the difference between, say, an IPS finish and or a lime plaster finish?
So for me, to just make the language a little bit easier, I'd like to say the plaster, a lime plaster, is something that we apply on masonry. So that's 12 to 20 mm or 30 mm. I mean, however thick your masonry requires it to be. And a finish is something that is 2 to 3 mm, 5 mm thick, that we apply over an already level surface. So
Right.
IPS is actually an idea. It's the idea of polishing cement, and this idea is inherited from polished lime.
Yes.
And actually, Anjali, if you so if you like, I have a board right here, a little sample board that I can probably try and
Yeah, just put it
show
in
on
front of
camera if you
camera.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
let me see if I can do that. uh, yeah.
Oh, wow. I can't hear you anymore, Malvika, though. Sorry. Sorry, your voice is gone, Malvika. Something's happened to the voice. But I see how it was super shiny. It was almost like a mirror finish, stone finish.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Now I can, yes.
Okay, so you were able to see the sample board. Okay, yeah, so that mirror finish, but there's I'm quite sure if you place this sample board next to an IPS which is black, you'll immediately see the difference in the quality of the polish or quality of the inherent material. And the technical reason for that is that lime crystals allow double refraction of light. So there's something, any application that you undertake with lime, even a far less a far simpler, straightforward application, you will always pick up on that difference. Your eyes will pick it up. The way the light moves inside the lime crystal, the calcite crystal. So IPS is basically, the idea is it's inherited from polished lime. Polished lime has been used not just in India, not just in Rajasthan, but all over the world in different forms for centuries. So Venice, Morocco, Japan, these are some of the well-known traditions. Rajasthan, of course, where we call it Araish. And they all play off the same basic chemistry of lime. But then there are local kind of spins on it that make sense with local qualities of lime or local ingredients, local cultures. In Morocco,
Right.
for example, it was used a lot this technique was originally developed to, I think, to kind of line the inside of water carrying pots.
Oh,
Because there's like a
wow.
lot, yeah. So, and then from there it evolved into the finish for the hammams. And yeah. And in Venice, of course, it's also what was used. The original terrazzo was set in polished
Yeah.
lime.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now so again, you can see how the ideas are all age old. We keep adapting them. So that's this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there is a lot of mystery, Malvika. Sorry for interrupting, but I
No.
am just saying, like, because these are like kind of these old materials, like there seems to be a lot of mystery to what goes into this, lime plaster. So like Araish or, it's also called stucco finish, right? So it has all these different names and we still see it shining in these old buildings. You go to the palaces of
Yeah.
Rajasthan and you see it still shining, right? And I love this double refraction of light. I love it. So, but the point is that, I feel like there was this mystery, like I've even heard like, you have to put methi in it or like cow dung
Right.
in it. So I think that again is another kind of a, stumbling block for people like us who are maybe looking to use lime plaster now. And as you rightly identified, there's been a couple of generations where that information's kind of discontinued, right? So can you tell us what goes into lime plaster?
So one of the things that I'm striving to do through MLime is that we're able to take all these place specific forms of lime practice and rationalize them. because like you're talking about organic additives. Now, in Chettinad, they add egg white to, I think, achieve a similar shine. In different parts of Rajasthan, and they say in our local tongue that every 40 villages, the recipe changes. So, somebody will add gur, somebody will add methi, somebody will add oats, somebody. So, all of that. Now, why? It's one way of looking at it is like, we add admixtures to cement. This is a damp prone wall. Okay, so we'll, put one dhakkan of fix it for every one unit of cement poured in plaster. So they are admixtures. They have to be, these organic additives are admixtures. They have to be used with restraint, with understanding. But also, on the other hand, there are, for example, there's a German company called Bauchemie, which does admixtures for cement for many decades, right? I think they also make admixtures for lime. So they have taken the active ingredients, they have studied traditional admixtures, extracted the active ingredient, the particular carbohydrate or sugar or protein that modifies properties, that does the work, and extracted them, put it in a little bottle, made it easy to use, made it brainless to use, given a scalable solution. You see, when you're if you're doing new build, and if we have to fit into the workflow today, which is extremely rapid, extremely timeline driven, extremely standardized, we need to take all these traditional wisdoms and we need to kind of adapt them to our current.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what M-Lime does too, right? Like M-Lime is...
That's what we hope to. Yeah, exactly. That's the goal. Otherwise, no solution is good enough until it's scalable today. Nothing can make an impact unless if it's rapidly scalable and usable. Niche solutions, and by that I mean solutions, environmental solutions. This for me comes down to creating lovely interior human habitats, and also thinking of implications of the material beyond the footprint of the building or the site.
Right,
and
absolutely.
I think our generation of practice and even Grounded's work is exactly occupied, like it's obsessed with this because it has to.
Yeah, that's why we are really keen to use M-Lime soon. But Malvika, so M-Lime, so from what you and I have chatted in the past, M-Lime is basically where you're bagging lime putty, which is a liquid form of lime. So can you talk about that? Like, why are you doing that? And also, sorry, just one more part to it. Can you talk about if someone was to use it as a lime plaster, then is M-Lime like a finished product that they can just bring on the site and use? So like this is a two-part question. So tell us what is M-Lime and, can it be used for plaster?
So M-Lime is of course the name of our enterprise, and our primary production is called Fat Lime. Fat Lime is essentially a ready-to-use form of lime, non-hydraulic lime, I should say. So just the way cement is procured in bags, it's graded, and we don't get clinker and we don't sit and mash the clinker on site and make our own cement. We get a ready-to-use version of the binder. I'm calling it a binder because that's the role of cement, lime / lime in construction, is that they bind. What we do now, traditional practice is that we procure lime in some raw form. Either it is quicklime or it is hydrated lime powders, and these raw forms of lime are brought to site, and then at the scale of every individual site, these are processed. And by processing, I mean usually one adds them to water, what we call slaking, another word you would have heard. And if you visited any of these sites, you would have seen large or small tanks of some shape or form, whether it's just drums, whether it's a hole in the ground, whether it's like an actual tank that they built up. And in these tanks, the lime is mixed with water and left there for as long as possible. And this slaking process is then after, whatever timelines the site allows. When the Romans built Rome, they slaked their lime for 3 years. So now, even if we get to do like 3 weeks, is like, oh, I did it for 3 weeks, and
Right.
and why we slake, I'll also come to that. And then we create usable binder, which that wet material out of the tank is what we mix with various aggregates to do plasters, mortars, concretes, or finishes, even finishes like the one that, like the polished one that we just spoke about. So lime is the binder, and you can vary the technique, you can vary the aggregate, and you can create lots of different applications for all different parts of components of the building. This, instead of doing this DIY process, which greatly increases costs, effort, management effort,
Right.
and because then, and also quality control, you can imagine, becomes completely difficult for an architect or for a project engineer, because
Right.
you're using the same material from the tank, you don't know where this material is coming from. Firstly, that's the other big problem in India,
Yeah.
is that if you buy some white looking substance and this is quicklime, now you don't know what kind of limestone was it made from, you don't know how long it's been sitting exposed to air in its dry form. Every time lime is dry, it's reducing in quality. I'm talking specifically of non-hydraulic lime, which is primarily the lime that's mined in Rajasthan and sent out all over the country, really, and up to even Nepal. Even in from what I hear, Nepal's construction lime comes from Rajasthan. So
Wow.
so this particular quality of lime we call non-hydraulic, essentially because you have to practically, what that means is just the way a cement bag, we keep it dry until the moment of use. Even if we ship it in containers, right? We don't, wet cement
Right.
means that it's starting its setting process.
Right.
So same way, dry lime means it's starting its setting process. So half of your lime would have taken carbon dioxide from the air and just started setting in the dry form. Then you slake it for as long as possible to recover some of that quality. You also want to recover the quality that is lost in, let's say, improper burning. Now so there is also a lot of romance, especially that comes
Of
from
course.
natural builders, for like long lost country kilns and that entire technology of lime production, which used to happen 100 to 300 years ago. But for me, I feel like we need to take advantage of the engineering capacities that we have today. And
Right.
if that means that I can get a better kiln and burn my limestone better, so that I have less impurity in my end result, and that also means I'm mining less limestone from nature, I'm making better use of it, and I'm therefore able to create some kind of consistency in the product, in the lime that I end up with. These for me are benefits that far outweigh, country kiln, support the country kiln. They are polluting.
Right. The romance of it. I totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah, and part of the so when you end up with a kind of a shaky quality of lime or an uncertain quality of lime, then you also want to add all these other admixtures. You're far more dependent on them. But you see, an admixture is like what, 5% of your mix. If your lime isn't essentially good, 5% is only going to do that much for you, right? So a lot of people and a lot of young architects who do, and I did as well, get very obsessed with the research around, should I put methi, should I put gur, shall I put dahi? I feel like if you use good quality lime, you don't have to do any of that.
Oh,
and
wow.
we don't. Yeah, and we offer a field manual for plastering, where we do write down that these are the optional organic additives. If you like, you can go ahead and do your little sampling, and always good to do a sample, right? And do a before, like a comparative study. But for me, I think that I don't suggest it. I think it increases time and cost, and when your lime is well performing, you don't need so much help from these other things. And that's fat lime. That's our main production.
So fat lime is basically slaked lime.
It's exactly that, yes. And we make sure that every batch has a consistent amount of water at 38%. So it's a wet material. It stays wet, and you stock it on your site, and it continues slaking inside its packing. So you don't have to sort of build a tank. You don't need infrastructure. And, the idea is to fit lime into the cement workflow. And the idea, and one of the things that we constantly try through M-Lime is that you don't have to depend on specialist karigars and specialist, craftspeople to
Artisans,
execute
yeah.
lime-based works. Lime can be as straightforward as any other contemporary material.
So let me ask you now that, we talked last time and you had said that obviously, ideally, so you had said that cement and lime don't really mix together, right? And you had said that ideally, if you were building a new building and you wanted to use lime, you should use lime for everything. So basically, that means that when you're doing your plinth, when you're you use lime as your mortar, and then you use lime for your, plaster, everything, right? Now, if because a lot of us will be using lime for the first time, I don't know if we will have that level of confidence of going with, to do everything with lime. But I'm coming back to lime plaster here, where I'm saying that what if we actually build our superstructure using cement, right? But we still want to go for a lime plaster for its aesthetic look, right? Obviously, there are other properties that it will have as well. But first of all, is that recommended?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I say lime and cement don't mix well, what I also then have to qualify by saying that there are certain ways in which you can use, lime and cement in the same structure, but you have to be mindful of how and where you are applying. So for example, let's say I have a wall of cement plaster, and it's, for whatever reason, I want to repair a patch in it. Now, if I go and do a patch with lime, that's not going to work.
Got it.
If I take my cement, I've inherited a cement plaster wall. Let's say the builder has built a shell or whatever, or the project is advanced where a cement plaster has already been done, and I don't want to break it because it's just been done. So then in that case, you can apply not a lime plaster, but a lime finish, which will adhere to a plaster. So a finish, whether it is lime based so a lime finish will adhere to a plaster, whether it is lime or cement. Then the plaster will adhere to masonry, right? So, but don't try to do a lime plaster over a cement plaster, just go for a lime finish in that case. And if you want to do lime plasters, for sure you can do it over masonry that has been laid with cement mortar, because that's often the case. And you can do that, but of course you lose some of the performative as benefit of lime plastering your building envelope is that you get very good thermal insulation, which you lose when you have cement mortar to some extent, because cement forms what we call cold bridges. It allows the transfer of heat much more easily from one face of the wall to the other, so you compromise there. But otherwise, aesthetically and longevity wise, lime plaster will adhere to even a Ciporex wall or even an RCC wall lime. And if it's the RCC is very well cast, then you can go for a lime finish straight away. Right? So as long as you are following the logic or the hierarchy of grain of every layer, you will be fine in mixing materials as well. And I can completely understand that everybody wants to start low risk with a new material.
Right. Absolutely. Because you said samples, right? So samples are great to see the finish, but, they don't show you what will happen after 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, right?
Exactly.
And ideally when we build for, a lifetime at least, right? Okay. So, so we talked about the plaster, but then tell me also, apart from the aesthetic properties, there are other benefits to using lime plaster, right? So can you talk about that? You touched on the thermal insulation.
Thermal insulation, acoustic insulation. Lime is also naturally highly alkaline. So it is a natural antimicrobial, it forms an antimicrobial surface. I have even read that it helps preventing spread of COVID in some Japanese literature. But whether that claim is scientifically backed or not, I don't know specifically for COVID. But you'll see that even today, animal shelters are always painted with a layer of lime, because animals can't clean up after themselves, and that's how it prevents the spread of disease. And in fact, somebody had brought this up with us, and then all this sort of corona and all that happened. But otherwise, we are hoping to provide lime to a bunch of maternity hospitals in rural Uttarakhand for exactly this reason, that it's a very naturally I have observed, living in a lime building, that there are very few mosquitoes, and I live in the old city which has open drains. And then I researched this and I realized that mosquitoes cannot lay eggs on lime surfaces because they're so highly alkaline. Yeah, so you know how, like, if in Delhi, if you're dusting a painting, you'll always see a mosquito come up from behind it, because that's the kind of place
and a lizard.
Yeah. And by Delhi, I mean a standard cement construction. So those kind of small behaviors really change. And of course, the internal air. The most important thing is that lime, as it sets, it reabsorbs the carbon dioxide that was generated in its manufacturing. So that also means it's cleaning the air inside, right? But of course, that effect will stop after a couple of years. It'll become very minor. So that's the thing about lime, is that it becomes stronger with time, as opposed to cement, which after the initial 28-day setting strength, cement's strength will reduce with every passing day.
Right.
Lime increases every passing day. And
interesting.
Yeah, so even after 2 years, its strength keeps increasing. Up to 2 years, it rapidly increases, and then it increases even more. First 3 months, it will increase, is the equivalent of the 28 days, sort of, with lime. So
let me ask you. So basically,
it's totally chemical free, VOC free. So all finishes, like the kind of the sick building syndrome that's written a lot about in Europe, because there's so many chemicals, especially, and the easiest way to see that is you'll see a POP, like a Birla Putti Karigar. Their eyes will be red. Or if you asthmatic people can't even get their houses painted while on Diwali, that kind of thing, because they can't get the VOC. So all of that, lime is totally free of all of that. It's the equivalent of having like organic food, I think.
Right. I totally.
Fast food.
I mean, it sounds lovely, right? So then, internal plaster, I think we all kind of are fairly convinced, just aesthetically beautiful, that you would use it internally. But then talk to me about using lime plaster as an external finish, and also tell me about using it in a place like Goa, for example, which is has these really severe monsoons for 4 months, where there is lashing rain on the external wall surface. So yeah, talk to us about that.
Yeah, so when there is lashing rain, one just wants a harder set plaster, which can take the beating. But in fact, lime, the way I see it, and especially if we are comparing it to something like cement, lime is excellent at moisture management, because of what everybody would have heard of, is that it's a breathable material.
Yes.
And a breathable material, what that means is that air can pass through it and carry the water in and out of it. So it can hold water and release it. And what that means is that cement constructions that, for example, rely on barriers to prevent seepage, to prevent water, and barriers only last that long. Barriers are extremely fragile. They have to be laid perfectly. They rely on 100% perfection, not even 99%, because that's all that it needs, that slight hairline crack, right?
Right.
So on the other hand, lime functions on the logic that water will come and go. It's the nature of construction. It's the nature of the ground as well. There could be you could be in Rajasthan, but you could have extremely high groundwater, and these things can change at any point in the life of a building. It can be dry today, it can become 15 years later, you have like a gush of groundwater coming up, and you wouldn't know how to control that. You can't tap the source. But there, lime becomes extremely useful, because it allows water to enter, but it also allows it to exit. And so in a rainy kind of area like Goa, my thought would be that using lime on the using and allowing breathability in the building envelope will help it last very long. And this also means the life cycle cost of maintaining a building, and it will not allow water accumulation, it will not allow seepage, mold, and all the kind of health issues that come with that, and just plain ugliness as well. And what also one needs to do for an exterior plaster, like I said, is a matter of hardness. So there are, and even in the we've written a bit of a M-Lime field manual just as a guide, and that also has some suggestions for specifications on how to create a harder plaster using the same lime by just varying the aggregates. Now, in what situation would you need a softer plaster? In a situation like, number one, less rain, so less beating of any kind, like less physical, this aggressive weather. Secondly, if your masonry unit is soft, you always, this is the other logic that, sort of many generations of cement thinking and structural engineering thinking has done to us, is that plasters, we forget, are protective coats. And plasters can be further protected with, say, a lime wash or a finish. Any finish is finally protective, and it is sacrificial. So even on the outdoors, where you're talking about a hard plaster, and you'll see in Goa, for example, all the churches are whitewashed, and now of course they've got distemper, so they've got seepage problems, but traditionally they were all whitewashed. And that's also how you would see the visual quality of the whitewash versus the white distemper. But anyway, the whitewash itself is a sacrificial finish, so it looks beautiful, but it is meant to sacrifice itself to protect the plaster within. The external plaster, which we have already hardened by adding a few aggregates, which we call pozzolans, for example, it's brick dust or ash or whatever, and then this plaster protects the masonry unit inside. Because imagine if you have an exposed masonry unit, and you'll see lots of images also of where there's like a lot of salt and efflorescence and this and that, it has completely eroded the surface of the masonry. And when you start eroding the surface of the masonry, that could potentially be a structural problem as well in certain buildings, right? So one is the protective aspect of every layer on the building envelope, and the other is, apart from the walls, also using the floors, also using the ground to help with moisture regulation, which I know even today is a huge issue with even new build houses in Goa, because
absolutely,
because of just the groundwater, just the ground swells up in the monsoon. And I remember you were telling me you have to mop the floors. And
actually, mopping the floors is not a problem. It's a bigger problem when moisture is trapped. So in a way, like, you're mopping the floors because we've used stone for our flooring, and it's again breathable, right? Because it's natural. So the moisture, I mean, no matter what kind of barriers you use, moisture will rise from the ground. So it's actually nice that, and the other reason why you get the water droplets on the floor is also because the inside is cooler. So it basically just condenses from the air, right? So, I just want to go back to the external finish, because, I mean, for us, at least in Goa, it's a very important aspect. And, you talk about the whitewash and you talk about these layers, which is great. But, the truth of the matter is that people no longer want to maintain their buildings every day, right? I mean, every year, right? So with the whitewash, what we're saying is that after every monsoon, you kind of go with another layer of...
Not that often.
No.
Maybe every 5 to 7 years. So I'm in UK, for example, and this is also very aggressive weather, in that differently aggressive, but yes. So so you let's say you'll do 4 to 6 coats of lime wash the day you when you build, and then you do a maintenance of 2 coats maybe every 4-5 years. Not more often than that.
But are you saying that you don't recommend that if we do external lime plaster, that we actually use like these sort of acrylic paints, that external paints that are available, which are kind of mold resistant, algae resistant, moisture resistant, they repel water? So are you saying that can that finish be used, and do you recommend it?
So again, for me, that's a barrier, and a barrier is based on a absolutely 100% flawless logic, and no construction in the world, however well executed, can hold up to that across the lifetime of a building. So and what happens with these kind of solutions is that eventually a hairline crack shows up, and by eventually also I feel like I'm being a little generous. So when there is that hairline crack, water starts entering and then getting trapped. And once there's water trapped behind your paint or whatever, membrane, then that's when it starts causing all the problems. Like you said, even with the floor, you want it to exit. You want water to exit. And that hairline crack is enough for the water to get in, but not to get out.
Right, right. No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So that hairline crack could be a result of movement in the building, because the other thing is lime is an extremely flexible material. And in fact, there's a word for it called autogenous, where lime heals itself when there are hairline cracks. It takes, free lime floating around, and then it heals. So it's so the cracks, those kind of fine, very fine cracks that you see on the surface of lime, kind of like a patina almost, those cracks keep changing throughout the season and throughout the life of the lime, because they
it's like it's living.
Healing. They keep self-healing. So so for me, a flexible material has more promise in aggressive environments, including, like, for example, in Rajasthan we don't have monsoon as bad, but we do have hot and cold variation. Temperature variation is very extreme in Rajasthan.
Yes.
So something as simple as terraces and finishing, because even if we use stone, the joints all open up and become very vulnerable and become very unsightly as well, because that's where all you can see, lines, the rhythmic lines of algae on every terrace. You can, very typical kind of things that, defects in our detailing, right? So again, using lime, so that's something we've done, and which has been traditionally done as well. The polished lime, like the IPS equivalent, is done everywhere outdoors. It's a great outdoor finish. It has lesser life outdoors than it does inside, but even so, it's a lot. And by that I mean it becomes a seamless finish for the copings, any kind of inbuilt furniture, parapets, and then the floors. So it's at least, so I think it would be worth an experiment to see how this finish would endure outdoors in Goa. But definitely lime plasters with a basic lime wash will get you through for sure. And then polish, because it's premium, one wants to do more risk analysis, because polished lime,
absolutely.
the thing. So yeah.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. We use a lot of this IPS finish to actually finish our flashing on the terraces, and even our like stormwater drains and things like that, because it is kind of the seamless finish. Okay, so I think we've ran to 45 minutes already. I think we have pretty good engagement. You did mention last time about the different kinds of lime, but I'm not going there today, even though I wanted to. Now, I think for all of us, tell us that if we were to buy M-Lime, bags, how do we actually, like, what is the proportion? How does one apply the plaster? What's the process of application, basically?
All right. So one is that with fat lime, which is our basic production, you can mix it with a variety of aggregates to create a variety of specifications. And we do offer a field manual to help guide. We also offer a training program for your local crew, so that they can, and this is a 3 to 5 day training program conducted on your site in the comfort of your sites. And basically our crew comes, usually 3 people. We have a sort of a format for it, so that we have found to be very productive for most customers and projects. And we know that because literally on the 3rd day or the 4th day, the projects will put in an order for like a full project size amount of material. So the idea is with M-Lime that ready to use materials will be easier for everybody involved, and also more predictable for say a karigar who has only worked with cement up until that point in their career. So so we can offer you the field manual just for your reference. We also tell you that, okay, for your crew training on site, keep these materials ready, and we do those suggestions. it's a very open-ended program. If somebody wants to focus more on finishes, they can do that. Certain sites just spend like maybe half a day quickly going over that. They dwell on like 6 different variations of plaster. So it depends on your projects, you know, what you would like. And also I will add, I think you'd asked me earlier in the chat as well, we do offer 2 ready mixes. By ready mix, I mean it's fat lime plus aggregate already mixed in and ready to use. You just empty it out and start applying on the wall. These ready mixes are for finishing purposes, you know, the kind of sample, the polished lime that we showed, and they use marble dust as an aggregate. So we have 2 variations, one more coarse, one which is finer, grinded on a stone, you know, stone grinder. And yeah, so we offer those again so that, you know, you can quickly learn the finish technique if the material is ready. If you don't have to sit and first learn how to process the material and watch the material and this and that, and then so you know, so we feel like 3 to 5 days usually works out to be quite productive for any cement karigar. You know,
Got it. So this
by
ready
cement
mix,
karigar, I mean, yeah, somebody who's fluent in construction but not
right.
necessarily lime.
So this ready mix is put on top of a plaster, or is it the plaster itself?
It is applied, or it is a finishing, so it is meant to be applied over plaster. But then there's also some customers who wanted, you know, their brick to look read through, so they didn't want a very thick plaster at all. So in that case, I would tell them just put the finishing material directly over your brickwork. You know, they were doing like interiors of a boutique or something. So so there's always a lot of scope to play around with lime, because the thing with lime is, if it will fail right in front of your eyes. It will not fail after next monsoon. Like cement always achieves quickly, very quickly, it achieves its initial hardness. So the contractor's liability is over, they all go home, and then next summer you are like stuck there holding, like looking at a cracked wall or whatever. So but with lime, if it will fail, it will drop right there. It will never achieve its initial strength. You'll be able to, you know, yeah.
So Malvika, last 2 questions. One is, obviously everyone wants to know what is the difference in the cost. And, you know, I know that you will say that, you know, it's not easy to compare. It's like apples and oranges. But if you were to kind of make it comparable, right? So let's say forget, like we're not going to talk about doing everything in lime, but we say, okay, just the plaster, or and maybe just the internal plaster, right? So if you were to take a house and say, I want to do just the internal plaster and lime finish versus a cement plaster with, or I mean, maybe we just say IPS, right? Just so it's easier to compare. So what kind of cost difference are we looking at using M-Lime?
Okay, so one thing about plaster, lime plaster, is like we spoke about the crystals. It's usually quite attractive, and a lot of sites who, even though they initially plan that they're going to cover it up, leave their plaster exposed in the interior. And that right there saves you a lot of money, because lime plaster then becomes the cost of, you compare it to the cost of cement plaster plus Birla putty plus like primer plus 3 coats of paint. And if you're doing IPS, then you know, then that's even more. So right there at that basic level, just a simple lime plaster, straightforward lime sand or lime surkhi or lime sand surkhi plaster becomes cheaper. But if you're going to do a lime plaster and compare it directly only to a cement plaster, you will find that the cost of the lime plaster is more, only because lime is not used as the same scale as cement. If lime factories became as large as cement factories, right? But otherwise, in terms of aggregate, in terms of technique, time, all of that, you're not spending more on lime than you would with cement. At least with M-Lime, Fat Lime, where we are, you know, where we are providing ready to use and very streamlined workflow. So
and also, like, the wastage is less, right? If someone was to try to experiment with lime and, you know, get the dry lime and slake it on the side and all of that, and if they, you know, like spoil a batch, then there's a huge amount of wastage.
Yeah, no, and you know, 30 to 40% of material that is bought from the kind of corner shop is basically filler. It has no binding ability. It's there, it's an impurity, but either you will sieve it out and you'll use it for like paving the landscape or something, or you will put it in a landfill, or you'll probably just let it sort of work as filler. Not, you'll be paying for binder but using it as filler basically. So actually we do offer a cost comparison for those who are interested in the DIY lime versus fat lime from M-Lime. That is something that's very easy to compare kg to kg. Yeah.
Do you have any videos of like application or something on your website or on your Instagram which we can kind of watch?
Actually, yeah, I do have one which I should upload, a very little one on the ready mixes. One of the reasons we haven't been doing videos is because sometimes I feel it gives people fake confidence. Like, oh, it looks so easy in the video, I'll do it on my site. And then, because you can't actually pick up details like how wet is the substrate, what is the consistency. Little things make all the difference in construction, right? Whether you're working with lime or any material. So that's one reason why, like, people ask me for polished lime, why don't you make a video tutorial? And it's easy enough for me to make it, but I'm quite sure it's not going to be helpful, because it'll make you think like you'll do it, but it's, you can see YouTube has 100 videos on polished lime in different traditions, Cadillac and so on. But you try and you collect the materials and try and doing it at home. It's much easier to actually have a physical demonstration, like with our training program, how we do it.
So you do recommend that if you wanted to use M-Lime, like, we get the training program, or is the field manual enough for someone to actually be able to do it?
We only started the training program recently. Before that, a lot of sites did it by field manuals. And the reason, what the difference is, with field manual, you'll need to probably do 2-3 iterations. It will take up a little bit of more time, because you'll do one, then you'll do another, then you'll see how that's doing. So that it saves you that frustration or that headache of like multiple iterations. That's what the crew training saves you. But usually if the architect or if any one person on site has any experience with lime, then you don't need, especially like for polish, for finishes and for plasters, you don't need any much help at all. It's really not specialist. And even finishes, only polished lime is a very specialist application. Others are just basic, straightforward. On my side, even the karigars don't, the so-called karigars don't do it. It's the women who do it, who are not considered karigars, which is a huge, that's a huge mindset which needs change. But yeah. But you know what I mean. Yeah.
That leads me to my last question, Malvika. I love talking to you, because you're completely like geeky and nerdy, about lime. I haven't spoken to you about anything else, but I'm sure we should hang out. I think we'll really get along. But, I think that's also sort of how I feel about material, right? Like when I started out, when I started Grounded in 2010, I did a lot of research on a lot of materials too, because I didn't like people just telling me things, and scaring me, for example, about wood. Like, people would just be like, oh my God, like expansion, contraction, oh my God, right? So I actually went in and did a lot of research as to why it happens, how do you control it, all of that. So I absolutely love that about you. But you are a female founder, and you're in the building material industry, where you really don't find, women sort of taking the charge and running the company. And you've really been innovative, right? So with all of these lovely things that, you're doing, just dole out some recommendations, like some advice for the women, the young women architects who are listening to this.
Oh, wow.
Come on.
I feel like I'm closer to them than I am to, I still feel like I'm one amongst them. And yeah, I think just follow your nose and stay curious, right? So important. And you have to be very gritty in this country. You have to really persist, especially in India, because gender, in North India, maybe yes, a different context, but all over the world, really, I think you have to really persist a little bit more. So keep persisting. Yeah.
I agree. That's great advice,
Yeah.
Malvika. I
Yeah.
really do feel like that too. I mean, I feel like just kind of don't give up and keep at it, and
Yeah.
you will kind of
Yeah.
see success.
And
So
it
so
shows
that's
up in
great.
unexpected places. I never thought that I'd be like when I started restoring the Haveli so many years ago, and it's still not done. The project is still hanging, and I because it's turned into a laboratory for me. I never thought that I'd end up here. With the business of construction materials. So I never know. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. I mean, I think I have another. I want to keep talking to you about when you say gritty, but I think we should wrap it up. It's all.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. Sorry, guys, we have not had time to take questions that you have sent here on the Instagram. As I said, an hour, so we should wrap it up. You guys can send us your questions, or you can ask Malvika directly on her Instagram
Yeah.
feed line. And I it was helpful. We definitely at Ground are definitely going to try to use MLime soon, and we'll share with you if we're able to do some interesting things with it. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks a lot for making this happen, Anjali.
See you
Thank
soon.
you.
All the
Thank
best.
you. Bye bye. Bye bye. Thank you.